Well, we'll have to ask the chat room. But joining us on the Budwitz and Meyer Jack hotline right now, we have State Rep William Tong. Mr. Tong, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you? Good evening.
Terrific. Now, you have had a very busy evening. I know you're just getting out of one engagement, and I don't know, they were scrambling to try to get you to a landline. Did they do it?
Unfortunately, I'm on a cell phone in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot
Oh,
in Westbrook, Connecticut.
oh my goodness. Well, all right, don't
So
give
if you
your
hear a door open and close, it's because someone's going out to get me a donut.
That's terrific. What kind of donut are you? What kind of donut fan
Yeah,
are
I'm a
you?
blueberry guy.
Really? A
Yeah,
blueberry guy? No kidding.
I like blueberry donuts.
All right.
I shouldn't eat too many of them, though.
So something has gone wrong in your world, and you have decided to run for U.S. Senator, and we'd like to ask some questions about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer those questions. I think something is going wrong for all of us, not just in my world.
Well played. Well, your first now these questions for the listeners. I know you guys know this already, but just to make sure, in case anyone new out there, these questions are not gotcha questions. These are interviews with the candidates that are taken right from their websites. We want them to really be able to showcase their platform. So, our interview with State Rep William Tong, running for senator. Your first page on your website for your platform says you jobs is what you're going to concentrate on. A war on
Right.
unemployment. Uh, jokingly, I was talking to our co-host Jen here about, Connecticut says it's open for business, but it's really not. We have very unfriendly business practices here. Case in point, I just got my business entity tax, which I have to pay $250 for just having a business, let alone whether it makes money or not. Where is it that you see as a senator you can help Connecticut get back to work?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for having me on tonight. Is this Brian that I'm speaking with?
It is.
Hey, Brian. Nice to meet you by telephone and radio show. And hello, Jen. Nice to talk with you as well.
Hey, William.
First of all, let me say that Connecticut is open for business again. I think we've done tremendous things just in the last 12 months with our new governor. We passed an important jobs bill to try to increase investments in some key areas, including our energy sector and trying to help small businesses hire new employees. We've done something like what I proposed in my plan, which I rolled out a few weeks ago. I think the critical thing we have to do in this country is to help businesses hire, to step out there, because right now there are still businesses that are afraid to take on a new salary because they're unsure, they're not confident about where this economy is going. So to help shore up that confidence, what we've got to do is we've got to get out there and help businesses that are afraid to take on a new salary, pair them up with a worker who could help that business, who's at home receiving an unemployment benefit, bring them together and allow that person who's receiving an unemployment benefit to use that unemployment benefit as a subsidy, a down payment, a subsidy for their salary. The employer pays the rest, and then we can put those folks back to work. That's just one idea that I put out there that I think we can do at the federal level that will really help people get back to work and put us back on our feet again. What I do want to say also about Connecticut, though, is that the new governor and our legislature has rung up a series of really important victories over the last few months, with NBC Sports coming, with Cigna coming. There's a lot of movement in that space in creating jobs here in Connecticut, and it's because we put up the open for business sign, because we're inviting employers to come here with a combination of tax credits, of investments, for example, in the new Jackson Laboratories project, and we're making a commitment to infrastructure so people can move goods and services and working people throughout Connecticut and beyond our state. So I think the state is taking a huge step forward, and what I want to do as a U.S. Senator is to support Connecticut in growing its job base here.
You mentioned that you want to bring back the hugely popular Build America Bonds program. $180 billion of these bonds were issued just under 2 years ago. And you want to bring this back, and you think that this could create, you mentioned 2 million jobs each year for the entire
Yes.
country?
Yes.
Explain to me how that would work.
Well, basically, the Build America Bonds program was a hugely successful program that, because of Washington and its inability to get anything done right now, basically expired. And what we need to do is bring that program back. I know that in Stamford we use that program for municipal projects, for infrastructure projects, but it also could be a critical basis for funding our transition to alternative and renewable energy here in this country and in Connecticut. I think one of the biggest problems we face as a country is that people are not adopting these new technologies and these new energies in their homes. People want to put solar panels on their roofs, and they want to install geothermal in their homes, but who can afford 25 grand for solar panels or 50 grand for geothermal? It's just not practical right now. And our friends in New York State had an important program called the TASTE program. We've tried to do that here in Connecticut, where a municipality borrows at low interest and lends money to residents at low interest that they can use to fund the installation of solar panels or geothermal, and then they can pay it back over time on their property tax bills. We need to make that happen, and one way to do that, to speed that adoption, is to reinvigorate and restart the Build America Bonds program, so those funds can go into programs like that and help people adopt those alternative and renewable energy strategies.
Keeping Connecticut families in their homes is also paramount on your website. You say we have to act now to keep families in their homes. What do you mean by we? Do you mean the federal government, or do you mean the state, or do you mean private business? Who is the we that has to act to help keep families in their home?
I mean all of us. After the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, the Speaker of the House asked me to take on the role of chairman of the committee that oversees our banking, financial services, and mortgage industries here in Connecticut. I'm now the chairman of the Banks Committee. And the reason why he asked me to do that was because he wanted a Democrat who spoke the language, who had worked in the private sector, who had worked with financial institutions, and could look them in the eye and say, we are going to take action to help people stay in their homes. He said to me, William, the one thing I want you to do is to help people stay in their homes. And we did that. We passed an important expansion of the state's foreclosure mediation program, which essentially stops the foreclosure process while people are trying to work something out with their lenders. And under that program, more than 75% of people work something out, and more than 65% of people stay in their homes. That's an important component, something like that, in this new $25 billion settlement between the attorneys general in our country and the 5 major banks and servicers. We need to take more action, though, in Washington. We need an emergency plan to refinance America's mortgage debt. If you've got a federally insured mortgage and you get a chance to refinance down to 4%, you can save as much as $2,800 a year on mortgage payments. Get some breathing room. Avoid those foreclosures and strategic defaults, and potentially pump $1 billion into Connecticut's economy every year.
You mentioned that you also are in favor of bridge loans for folks that have lost their jobs. You mentioned that losing one's job is the number one reason people are having trouble and getting upside down in their mortgages. For example, if you lose half of your household income, you are eligible for a loan worth half of your mortgage payment, capped at some $1,500 a month, for a maximum of 2 years. What if we have business owners who go out of business? Would they also be eligible for that kind of bridge loan?
Look, we need to do things of that nature for our small businesses. That's another part of my plan. And I talk about small businesses because of all the candidates, frankly, it's something that I know something about. And I grew up in a small business working side by side with my parents in a Chinese restaurant. I know how hard people are working. I know how hard it is to hold on to a small business in a tough economy. Frankly, I've been part of a family business and watching it decline, and that is a very difficult thing to be a part of. And I know that fundamentally, businesses need access to credit and capital. Right now, our major international institutions are not lending to small businesses. The community banks are still worried. They're sitting on cash. They want to put that money out there, but the credits, quote unquote, which is how they refer to people that they lend to and businesses that they lend to, the credits have been nicked up in this difficult economy, and they're afraid to step out. That's why I'm calling for the Small Business Administration to double its loan guarantee activity from $28 billion a year to $60 billion a year as a start. By contrast, we spend $700 billion a year on defense spending. I think we could do a lot more to help our small businesses, and certainly bridge loans, shock to small businesses can be addressed by bridge loans and by short-term lending and by loan guarantee programs that the Small Business Administration could put out there.
Keep it on the small business theme. You had an interesting paragraph about passing a job creators visa to help talented entrepreneurs create jobs right here on our shores. Google, Yahoo, Sikorsky, Electric Boat, all of these companies were founded by immigrants. And you say we need to make sure the next Google isn't started in Russia or China. Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, well, this is also deeply personal to me. I also mean the next Town Sun Kitchen. The Town Sun Kitchen was my parents' first restaurant. It was a small Chinese restaurant on Park Street in Hartford.
Yeah, there's a great video on your website about that, too. I encourage you guys to go over to williamtong.com and watch that video. Well done there.
Thank you. Well, the one story that's not on that video is when my parents came to this country. When my dad got to Connecticut, he came here to cook Chinese food, and he had just 57 cents in his pocket. He also had a tourist visa. That tourist visa expired, and we believe that at some point a rival Chinese restaurant owner, believe it or not, literally dropped a dime on my dad in those days, and an INS agent who was a customer in our restaurant came by and told my dad, your visa's expired and you've got to go. My parents planned to leave this country. They planned to pack up their lives, but my dad wasn't done fighting, so he wrote a 6-page handwritten letter to the President of the United States, and he said that, he was just a small business person looking for a chance, and he begged for the opportunity to stay here in Connecticut. About a week before my parents planned to leave, that same INS agent came back with a letter from the Attorney General of the United States. And that letter said that the President had received my dad's letter. We welcome you to this country. Now go to the back of the line and wait your turn, but please stay. And it's because of that incredible act of compassion that I was born an American in Hartford Hospital. If that hadn't happened, my dad and all his work, running a small business, then running a larger business, and then becoming a real estate investor and in this state, all of those things would never have happened. And the jobs that my parents were able to create, that we were able to create in our family business would never have happened. So in that way, I think we've got to encourage immigrants to come to this country if they've got investors, if they've got a product that's generating revenue, if they've got a service that's generating revenue here in Connecticut, here in this country. Let's recognize that that's a valuable thing to grow our economy again. Let's recognize that that's how we grew our economy to the strongest economy in the world in the first place, and encourage those people to come here with a job creator's visa. Let's not invite people to come to this country and go to school or make some money and then leave. It makes no sense to kick them out. We have to encourage them to come here, put down roots, and to help us grow this economy and put us back where we ought to be.
And I think a lot of that speaks to your several paragraphs on what the key to the American dream is. And it's not just hard work and opportunity, but it is also getting an education. I'm a big fan of anyone who wants to throw more money into education because I think our schools should be palaces, and they're clearly not. You have a very lofty goal. I got it. In business, we call this a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. You want Connecticut schools, to be #1 in the nation in 10 years. Is that achievable?
Yes. I mean, is there any reason why in the state of Connecticut we should not have the best schools in the nation? I mean, look at what we've got going for us. We have tremendous resources. We have tremendous intellectual and human capital. We're right between Boston and New York and Providence. We should have the best schools in the nation, but we've got to make some tough choices, and we've got to make some targeted investments. It's about money. You're right. We do have to invest in our schools, but it's also about deploying those resources like a business, frankly, like a smart business person, deploying those resources and that capital to the right places. Our kids are not prepared to learn when they go to school. I believe fundamentally that is why we have the worst achievement gap in the country between high achieving and low achieving, between rich and poor. It's because kids, before they go to school, they don't have access universally to pre-kindergarten, and they're not ready to learn. And if they fall behind, it is extremely hard and very unlikely that they ever catch up. Now in Stamford, we've got universal pre-K for all kids. We need that across the country. We need that across Connecticut, so kids are ready to learn before they start school. If they are, in 10 years, those 15-year-olds will help us hold up and push forward the best school system in the country.
Switching topics, and I do like the things done by then Mayor Malloy, now Governor Malloy. He had mentioned that while he was running and having his little interview with the candidates a few years ago, that he wanted to do that for the entire state. So I applaud that effort. Switching topics to energy, you want to take on and stand up to big oil.
Yes.
I was talking to was it Congressman Murphy last week? Yeah, I was talking to Congressman Murphy last week, and I had some stats for him. And the sum and substance is that right here in the United States, we have centuries of natural gas and oil right here in this country. You know, I don't know a lot about this stuff, but it would seem to me that we say, all right, let's forget the Middle East oil or even Canadian oil. We have stuff here that we can use. And in, I don't know, 400 or 500 years, I'm pretty sure we could come up with a better alternative fuel source. But I don't know why. It seems like we're hoarding it just so we can use someone else's. Well, what's your plan for big oil?
Yeah, we're exporting oil and gasoline as we're having this conversation.
And right now, and mostly because it's a mild winter. So,
right.
So these guys aren't making any money.
It's tremendously frustrating to all of us. I agree with you that we have tremendous untapped resources. The balancing act we have to make is preserving our environment and preserving, frankly, our world for future generations, including my 3 children. I think there's a lot of important science and a lot of important activity, for example, with hydrofracking. But there are a lot of unanswered questions also about doing it safely. I mean, the method of extracting natural gas through hydrofracking is by pumping high-pressure water basically into the ground at a very, very super high pressure and causing fractures in the ground. And I don't think we know the long-term effects of doing that, of causing fractures in the Earth's surface, frankly. And then also, of course, all the chemicals that are used in order to enable that process.
Would you
so
support?
I do think we need to try to make it work and move down that road as soon as possible, but we have to be safe and we have to be effective and we have to be careful about it. My plan, again, focuses on speeding adoption of renewable and alternative energies. You know, one of the major myths, I'll call it a lie, is that alternative and renewable energy doesn't work because it's too costly and it requires huge subsidies. Well, guess what? The oil and gas industry also receives huge subsidies, billions and billions of dollars in subsidies a year. No oil company drills for oil without a guarantee that it's going to make money, without a guarantee that there will be a subsidy there, that when they drill, if it's empty, they'll still get paid. So the truth is that all of our energy sources take subsidies and receive government support. The question is, which way do we want to go? I think we want to go towards geothermal, towards solar, towards natural gas-powered vehicles. And to speed that adoption, we've got to make those investments and help people adopt those technologies.
We're talking to State Rep William Tong, running for Senator. Just a few more questions. Would you support expanding our nuclear capacity?
I think nuclear is part of the discussion. We obviously have a nuclear power plant here in Connecticut. I'm very concerned that our nuclear infrastructure is old and antiquated. I certainly don't want to see a repeat of what happened in Fukushima. There was also a recent scare aboard a Russian nuclear warship. I believe it was a submarine. There was a fire there. So, I do think it's part of the solution, and I think we need to, keep our minds open and develop safe nuclear options.
Moving over to national security, one of the things in the federal budget which astounds me is the biggest, and by this I mean the vast majority of our spending on discretionary spending is spent for U.S. defense. Can we cut back on some of that national defense spending and, say, pay off our national debt? Would you support that?
Yes, I do. And I think that Secretary Panetta the other day said that it is pretty close to inevitable that we're going to go through another BRAC commission type proceeding and try to bring down our level of defense spending. Obviously, we've done two things that are hugely important to that equation. One is to end the war in Iraq and bringing our troops home was a huge part of that. And secondly, bringing an expeditious resolution to the war in Afghanistan as quickly as possible. Under President Bush, our defense spending doubled. Our national debt doubled to the tunes of trillions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not sustainable. It is simply unsustainable. Now, that's tough for Connecticut. I recognize that. I recognize that we have Electric Boat and Sikorsky and Pratt & Whitney and General Electric.
And the United States Coast Guard Academy.
Yep, that too. And it is my job to, as United States Senator for Connecticut, to fight for Connecticut, to fight for those jobs, and to make sure that the necessary investments in our national defense are made here in Connecticut. But I think there are a host of other industries that we can move into that our manufacturers that are currently doing defense manufacturing can move into, including in alternative energy. The drones are made, for example, in San Diego and on the West Coast. I don't see why they can't be made here. And I also believe that we have a huge disadvantage in that a lot of the defense research is done in other parts of the country, including Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and in North Carolina. We need a research triangle here that as those new technologies are developed, that our manufacturers have a first crack at it. So on the one hand, you're right. We do need to reduce our defense spending. $700 billion a year is not sustainable. And I look forward to having that conversation and doing it in an honest way. At the same time, I do think it's my responsibility to fight for those jobs to the extent they impact Connecticut.
We're talking to State Rep William Tong, running for senator. My last question for you, and this is really, I just don't know. I don't even know how I feel about this. It has to do with the campaign financing reform, campaign funding. The idea now is that free speech is labeled as, hey, I can throw as much money into one of these super PACs as I want to. Because you know what? It's my money, and this is how I want to spend it, and this is how I want to spend it. I kind of get that. I kind of get that. But the part where my argument goes in the toilet is if someone has more money, then that means that some citizens have more free speech than other citizens.
That's right.
How do you grapple with that? Because I turn myself around until I'm dizzy trying to figure this out.
Yeah, basically, I think whatever the private property rights argument is and whatever the argument is about the ability to spend one's own dollars however they see fit, it's ruining our country. That's the bottom line. The rise of the super PAC is ruining this country. I mean, look at what it's doing to the other side of the aisle in this presidential campaign. It's disgraceful. Frankly, if I can differ with the president, I'm disappointed that he signaled that he's going to play that super PAC game. We can't do that. He's better than that. He can raise the money, without the super PACs. And at the end of the day, this whole thing has to stop being about money. The whole ball game has become about money. There are other candidates in this race that are out there crowing about how much money they're raising. With all due respect to Chris Murphy, he is one of a very select few, one of the top 10 recipients of Wall Street cash, 9 Republicans and him. This has got to stop. Lobbyists and obviously the corporations and the super PACs, they're ruining our political system, and we can't let it go on. We're not electing a fundraiser. We're electing a U.S. senator, and that's the critical thing. So it's got to stop being about money, and I think the only answer to that is a system of public financing like we have here in Connecticut. That's long-term where this thing has to go.
All right. Well, live from the Westport Dunkin' Donuts right here is
Westbrook.
Oh, Westbrook? Okay, Dunkin' Donuts. William Tong. Hey, thank you so much, folks. If you like what you heard here, you can go check out his website, williamtong.com, and you can also give him your vote. William, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much, Brian and Jen. Appreciate it.
Cheers. All right. We're going to take a quick little break, folks, and then we will be back to discuss a little bit more, hopefully with Terry Cowgill, if he's around. I'm not really sure where he's calling in. So one of these 5 computers around me will ring, and we'll get back here.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
Fresh, organic, and homegrown. On the Horn.